Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be giving you guys some revision advice for GCSE and A-level English literature, focusing on quotes, context, potentially critics if you're doing A-level, exam technique, all of the things. And the reason I'm sort of making this video again, because I did have a video on revising GCSE English literature, which I will leave in the description. It's currently on unlisted because I don't think my advice was very good. Is because I really struggled with A-level English Lit for months. I almost dropped it twice, but I finally think I found some methods that work for me, and I would like to pass them on to you guys and hopefully give you guys some assistance in your revision. So I'm going to start by kind of repeating some of the advice I gave in my old video because I still think it works, and then I'm going to go into some of the new things I found which I think work better. But I think just giving you guys all of the advice is the best thing I can do, because at the end of the day everyone revises differently, and by giving you guys as many options to explore I am hopefully maximising your chances of finding something that works. So to begin with is how I used flashcards to remember quotes GCSE. So I still would say this is one of the best ways to make flashcards. I don't really use flashcards anymore. I don't really think they work for me because I don't look at them. But basically the way I used to make my revision cards for quotes is, say for example, Christmas Carol. This is me holding up a pretend revision card here. I would write part of the quote, I would replace one word with a drawing, and then I would do one word to fill in the blank. So for example, Christmas Carol, hard and sharp, and I'd replace sharp with a drawing of a knife as blank, which blank would be filled in with Flint. So then when I'm looking back at the card, I have to first decipher what the code means. So what is this drawing of a knife? What does that mean? That means sharp. And what is the fill in the blank? Hard and sharp as flint. Bearing in mind I haven't read A Christmas Carol since May 2019, and I still remember that quote. So I do think that is a good way to remember them. The way I used to remember context was just by writing that all on a revision card again with just pictures, and I do think pictures are still a good way to revise, or comics, or just draw something stupid to help you remember a context. So I'm trying to think of something I could give as an example here, because okay, I'm trying to think of the subjects I'm studying, not subjects, the texts I'm studying, so I can give you an example. Okay, so we're reading Rebecca, and Manderley is based off Menabilly, which was a house that Daphne du Maurier basically fell in love with. So the way I maybe might remember that by drawing a picture would be to get a plain piece of paper and draw a giant house, and just put a giant M on it, and hopefully my brain won't just go Manderley because it's Menabilly, and then draw like a stick figure that maybe has du Maurier's hairstyle and just a little heart next to it, and then that's Du Maurier loved Menabilly. Something like that. Draw a picture. They're funny. Or draw a comic. So I could have, a comic of Du Maurier. She's walking around the forest and then she sees this house and she's like, whoa, my house of secrets. And that comes out of speech bubble because she did call it her house of secrets. Sorry, I'm just giving you Daphne du Maurier context here. It's just my example. Or for Othello context, you could be like, it's based off Cinthio's tale. I mean, is that context or is that Aeroful? Sorry, I'm not even remembering the mark scheme properly here. That's not good. But Cinthio's tale is something important to remember, so maybe, I don't know, just draw a book, says Cinthio's tale on it, and stick that on the wall. It's a good wall. So that's context, that's quotes. Critical analysis. This is less relevant to GCSE and more relevant to A-level, but I do think if you're aiming for like a grade 8, grade 9 at GCSE, it would still be very helpful to do. Impress your teachers, impress your examiner. I would definitely say in any case for English literature, reading as many articles as you can or reading as many other books as you can is excellent. So for critical analysis, the British Library has loads of articles. Also The Guardian has a lot, so especially for Rebecca I found. Sometimes just Googling the text should come up with some cool things. Seneca Learning, if they do your text on there, they don't do any of mine, so I can't, I mean they do Othello, but they don't do any of the other texts I'm studying, so it's not really helpful for me. But I know they do, I think they do A Streetcar Named Desire, and they will give you some critics in a really simplified way. Even just going on Quizlet and searching this book, critical analysis, you might get some simplified versions. However, I would definitely recommend reading full articles like British Library or The Guardian, or even just go on Google Scholar and read some random articles. That's what I did for my coursework. A lot of my coursework articles were taken from just Google Scholar. And I found some really interesting things out about Dracula and Frankenstein, and I could definitely have a full debate with you about it, and that is AO5. And AO5 is great. We love AO5. That's for AQA, A-level. I don't know about GCSE, I don't know about Edexcel. I'm just telling you what I know. And also reading books of the similar genre, or if you're doing a Shakespeare play, reading more Shakespeare, it just gives you that extra knowledge and information. So for example, at A-level, you get marks for AO4, which is, there's a man in the field. You get marks for AO4, which is other books. Sorry, the field's like really close to my house. No one ever goes in there. That's why I'm a little bit concerned. Not looking towards the house though. Hello, random Manford. Anyway, I completely lost my train of thought. So for example, again, I keep saying for example, we study, as I say, Rebecca, which is a Gothic story. So reading other Gothic stories can be really useful. So, you know, like Picture of Dorian Gray, Mysteries of Udolpho, which I have read, and Castle of Otranto again, which I've read. And both of those are really early Gothic texts. So if you're studying the Gothic, they would be very useful. Reading books by the same author. So I've read My Cousin Rachel, and I'm currently reading Jamaica Inn. It's really good. Or if you're doing poetry, you know, reading some Shakespeare poems, having a little look at techniques and learning techniques as well is something really important. And I do think, you know, there are books out there for that. There are articles out there for that. There are free online courses. You know, you might find something on Seneca. I'm trying to think of where I'm quite bad on my techniques, to be honest. I am not very good, and that's on never actually learning how rhythm works. But definitely I know there are sites out there to help with that, and I have had a little look myself. I can't remember anything specific, but honestly, if you just Google like English literature analysis terms, definitions, and you'll probably be able to find something helpful. Just have a little look around on the internet, familiarize yourself with that, and then maybe take a text and annotate it and see if you can recognize those techniques or use those techniques in some way. And understand the meanings behind why an author might use it. So don't just technique spot. Don't just be like, oh, well, this is a verb. Okay, and tell me more about it. What is that verb telling you? Oh, they've used a alternating rhyme scheme. Okay, what might that mean? Oh, there's a rhyming couplet at an end. What does that mean? And a rhyming couplet at the end, this isn't always true. This is what my teacher says. It can sometimes be true. You know, you've got to look at the context of the whole text. But if that happens in a poem, that may be for like dramatic emphasis, or if it's a happy love poem, that might be to signal like order and it working, everything's in harmony. I tend to think that if a rhythm's quite consistent and the content of the actual text is quite positive, that tends to support that. Or for example, in Shakespeare, in the soliloquies, they tend to end in a rhyming couplet. That usually signifies just more of a dramatic effect. The attention is drawn to it. So you can't just technique spot, and you can't have a blanket meaning behind a certain thing. You've got to look at both together. I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but definitely look at how a technique can be used to support the effect that a text is trying to make. And I know it's a bit of a joke about, oh, well, the door is blue, this means he's sad. But to be honest, it could mean that, you know, like look at colour symbolism. Colour symbolism is really useful. Or in something like Rebecca, look at the symbolism of the plants they're using. Like the rhododendrons tend to, I think, be quite like toxic to other plants. And also the fact they're blood red and luscious, and they're massed like a battalion. The way that du Maurier uses these plants is really chef's kiss. I love Daphne du Maurier so much. I need to shut up about Daphne du Maurier. It's good to make yourself passionate about the texts as well. I really do not have strong feelings, or I didn't have any strong feelings towards any of the poems, and now I just kind of really like them. You just gotta, you know, grow attached to the poems, grow attached to the books. Think of it like a friend. Stupid piece of advice, I'm sorry. Which then brings me into exam technique. So this was my biggest issue at the beginning of the year. I think the first thing you need to do is actually understand what the mark scheme is asking you, because I don't think I did. I don't know where I was weakest. I was really weak on my AO1 actually. So my AO1, again AQA, was to understanding of the text, and I don't think I really included that. So the way I'd sort of structure that is in your introduction. This is how I always do it. I'd say, so for example, Othello is a domestic tragedy, so I've sort of recognised the form there. First performed in 1603, so I've given a bit of context, and then I would sort of summarise what the text is about. So it's about like Othello and Desdemona, and I'm not going to spoil anything. And then I will go, because it's usually an extract that you use, and I say this is where the extract takes place, this is what the extract is showing. And then I take the question and what it's asking me. So say, for example, Iago's attitudes to love. And I say, within the extract, Iago's attitudes to love can be seen like this, but they can also be seen like this. And elsewhere in the play, this happens with a different character, which can then create contrast with Iago. And then link back to the question at the end of your introduction, and then go into your essay. And where my teacher always says is start at the simplest point. So say, for example, we're following a question about Iago's attitudes to love. Iago has a negative attitude towards love. That's where you start. And then I'd maybe go into the implications of, well, Iago has this negative attitude to love. We've shown this. And then because he has this negative understanding of love, this is what happens to the rest of the characters in the play. This is what happens elsewhere in the play. And then I might say he can be contrasted with Othello's attitudes to love or Desdemona's attitudes to love. But then you could also counter-argue, does he have a negative attitude to love, or does he just not understand love? Or is it just a negative attitude towards, Othello and Desdemona's love? And you can take these critics, which you so lovely researched earlier, and use them to support your argument. Give yourself some weight. Make sure that what you're talking about is backed up, because that's all good. And try not to be vague. So don't just be like, I don't know. I can't think of an example, but I remember that was always my teacher's biggest complaint with my essays earlier in the year, is I was very vague. And maybe I should make a video looking back at one of my essays and then looking back at one of my better essays and comparing it. Would you like to see that? I don't know. Always make sure you're using quotes to back up your points as well. Don't go too long without linking to a quote or the text, because otherwise you might find that you start to waffle. Always make sure you're linking back to the question. That is very important. And something that my teacher says you should do for the top grades is have a little look at how the text can help us understand. Well, so we're doing Love Through the Ages. So how can this help us understand love? Or maybe if you're doing, I don't know, I'm trying to think what we did for GCSE. I think we just did Macbeth, but just what can the reader learn about the world from Macbeth? And for GCSE, something my teacher told us to do, I was at a different school for GCSE, but I got a grade 8 in English Lit. So I'm going to trust what my teacher said, because both my teachers have said different things, to be fair, but I think this technique works for A-level as well. I actually know. Sorry, I don't know what I'm going on about. I still use this technique. It works. And it's called Pearl. So you might have heard of it. So you go point, evidence, analysis, reader, link. So you make your point. Iago has a negative attitude to love. Evidence, this is what he says about love. Analysis, this is how this quote about love, which techniques are used, and the effects of those techniques. So make sure you say the effects of the technique. Don't just technique spot. Don't just say, Iago uses the verb. Okay, and what does that mean? What does that tell us about his attitude to love? What does the structure of what he's saying tell us about love? Don't just say he's using a verb. Please, please don't do that. And then the reader from this can see his attitude to love, and what can they learn from that? Well, Iago is quite a negative character, so they can learn that maybe this isn't the right view of love. And then linked to the question, Iago's negative attitude to love tells us this. Always make sure you're linking to the question, and make sure you are keeping a consistent line of argument that flows. Make sure you're not waffling. And yeah, I might make a whole video on essay technique at some point using my teacher's advice, because my teacher at A-level is an actual legend, and I have 2 teachers. I love them both. I love my year 12 teacher as well. She was great. We love my teachers. So yeah, that is essentially, I think, what I wanted to talk about for today's video. So in summary, to remember quotes, revision cards are good. Also, rereading the text over and over again is just something I like to do. I have read Rebecca about 10 times at this point. Blurts of your quotes, your context, everything, they're really helpful. talking to other people about the text, reading articles, reading critical analysis, it's all really good. I would also say again that, you know, writing lots of essays is really good. So to practice your technique, keep writing, keep trying, get your teachers to mark it yourself, use the mark scheme. Read other books, get that background knowledge. And really just try not to give up. English literature A-level, at least. I mean, GCSE is hard too, but English literature A-level is definitely one of the most difficult things I have ever done. And I have grown to really love it. And I have really grown to love it because I just kept trying with it. And I kept experimenting with my essays, and I kept reading more critical ideas. And I thought at first teachers were being stupid by saying, you know, the door is blue, this means they're sad. But now I can see how it works, and I can see I'm not perfect. My grades are still not great for English. They're getting better. But I can see, you know, how skillfully things are crafted. And I definitely think it's really amazing once you get to that point. And there will probably be a point where it does just click for you and you do just get it. And I will say, if you're in year 12 and you're stuck on like a D or an E, don't panic. Oh, I promise you, I was stuck on a C-, the exact same mark, up until about April of year 12. And then I started getting Bs, and I'm still sort of on Bs, but I'm sort of pushing to an A. And I do think you really start to improve about halfway through year 12. So really don't panic if you're still stuck on a low grade. As for GCSE, honestly, it will be fine. The GCSE English is really, compared to A-level, quite simple. I'm not disregarding that it is difficult at the time, but I definitely think if you just follow these tips, you should be able to do well. If you have any questions, please make sure to leave me a comment and tell me what you think of the tips. I'm probably not the most qualified person here, but this is just what's worked for me. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye.